There are three potentially costly mistakes that homebuyers make. And today I want to talk to you about those mistakes and give you some tips on what you should do to avoid them or why you need to avoid them. So, if you're planning on purchasing a house anytime in the near future or at some point in the distant future, you're going to want to watch this entire video and find out the three mistakes that homebuyers should avoid. My name is Sharon Smoot. I'm a realtor and a residential real estate closing attorney in the metro Atlanta area. And I want to get right into these mistakes. The first mistake is not getting a survey. And the primary reason that people skip out on getting a survey is the cost. I would say for an average size lot in a subdivision, it's probably going to run you about $750, give or take. If it is a more detailed survey, a large lot, lots of improvements, it's going to cost you more. But when you think in terms of saving $750 now, or $1,000 or $2,000 or even $5,000 now, in the hopes that nothing comes up, I'd say you're being penny wise and pound foolish. So, what exactly is a survey? A survey tells you, number one, what the legal description of the property is. A land surveyor who is a professional who has been certified in doing surveys will come out. They're going to measure the lot. They're going to identify any easements, encroachments, and other things on the property. And the survey is going to identify for you exactly what it is you're purchasing. So the other thing, and this is the crucial thing, is that the survey is going to identify issues with the property or potential issues with the property. It's going to show you where easements are. It's going to show you any encroachments. Maybe your neighbor's fence is on your lot. Maybe the fence that that the current owner built is on the neighbor's lot. It's going to show you whether the property's in a flood zone. It's going to show you where stream buffers and bodies of water are located. It is going to show you where pipelines, sanitary sewer easements, everything you could possibly need to know about what is on the land, the survey is going to reveal to you. Building lines, building setback lines, things like that. This is really important information to help you understand whether you want to even move forward with the transaction. So why wouldn't you get a survey? And it is important to understand that the purchase and sale agreement that you sign with the seller requires the seller to deliver good and marketable title to the buyer, to you. If there are survey issues, the seller cannot convey good and marketable title until those issues have been resolved. Now, a lot of agents make the mistake of thinking that the survey has to be completed during the due diligence period, but that is not true. That is not correct, because the contract says the seller has to deliver good and marketable title. And 9 times out of 10, if you go under contract today and there's a 5 or a 7-day due diligence period, that survey is not going to be completed within that 5 to 7 days anyway. But as long as the issues are brought to the seller's attention before the contract expires, the buyer has the right to request that the seller resolve all survey issues. So get a survey. Get it on the front end. I'm going to give you 2 examples, one where the buyer got a survey and one where the buyer did not get a survey, and kind of give you an idea of the different impact and resolution, I guess, or non-resolution. So the first one, the home is under contract. The buyer gets a survey. The survey reveals that the mailbox for the home right next door is on the subject property. The seller goes to the neighbor and says, hey, I'm selling my house. I just was notified by the buyer that your mailbox is on my property. Here's a copy of the survey. The neighbor looks at it, says, "Oh my goodness, I had no idea. No problem. We'll have it torn down." And it was one of those pretty brick mailboxes and rebuilt on our property. So that didn't cost the buyer one dime over and above the cost of the survey. And they were satisfied with the response that the neighbor gave that they were going to have it torn down before the closing. So everything was good. The next example involved a client that a friend of mine who's a realtor represented. And he had asked me to go and let the home inspector in because he was busy. So I go down there. There's a driveway. I park in the driveway, open up the house for the inspector. I go on about my business. Well, the closing takes place. My friend's client is happy. She's got this house. She's going to do some renovations. And she's at the property with her contractor. They're parked in the driveway. Up comes this gentleman and he's like, "Excuse me, but you're parked on my driveway." And she said, "No, this is my house. I just bought it, closed a few days ago. This is my house." And he said, "Oh, I'm not disputing that you own the house, but you don't own the driveway. I own this vacant lot next door, and this driveway is a part of that lot." Well, this woman had not gotten a survey. So she had no idea that the driveway didn't belong with the house that she was purchasing. She made an assumption. And I don't know how it was resolved, if she was able to enter into a shared driveway agreement. But the kicker is that the house was on a 2-lane road here in one of the metro Atlanta suburbs, and there was no street parking allowed. So this woman literally had no place to park her car, no place for the construction team that was doing the renovations to park. It was a complete mess. So I would assume that she was able to work something out with the guy who owned the lot next door and the driveway that she thought was a part of her property, but I don't know what happened. So those are just two examples, but I went to a survey class a few months ago, and the guy who conducted the class was really good. He had a lot of great stories, and these issues that could be revealed by a survey actually do come up. And that will take us to mistake number 2, which is foregoing owner's title insurance. So what is owner's title insurance? Owner's title insurance protects your ownership interest in the property against unpaid judgments, liens, etc., that were owed by previous owners, and it protects your interest in the land from boundary line issues and things like that, okay? So owner's title insurance is the cheapest insurance you will ever buy. It is a one-time premium. The coverage is good for as long as you own the property, regardless of how many times you refinance. But a lot of people think that they can skip out on the survey because the owner's title insurance will protect them if there are any survey issues, but that is not correct. There are 2 types of owner's title insurance: standard coverage and enhanced coverage. The standard coverage does not protect against issues that could have been revealed by a survey. The enhanced coverage offers limited protection, and it will require the payment of a deductible. Don't ask me how much it is. It depends on who your title insurance carrier is. Don't say, "I'm not going to get it. I've never had to use it before when I've purchased a property," or "my uncle said that it's a waste of money." You might think it's a waste of money until you realize you need it. And you might not realize that you need it until 3, 4, 5 years into your ownership of the property. So don't skip out on getting owner's title insurance. So if you're still with me, comment title insurance. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. So let's talk about the third mistake that could be potentially extremely costly, and that is adding someone to title. Now, you might be saying, well, what's the big deal if I add someone to title? I've seen it happen, and I'm going to give you an example right off the bat. Years and years ago, this has probably been in the early 2000s, maybe. I handled a closing for a young lady, and her boyfriend was there at the closing table with her. And quite honestly, I immediately got kind of a weird vibe from him because he was chiming in too much for somebody whose name wasn't on any of the loan documents. But anyway, I noticed as we were nearing the end of the closing that he kept nudging her and whispering to her. And finally, she was like, "Oh, yeah, Miss Smoot, how do I add my boyfriend to title?" And when I tell you, I was trying to tell her telepathically with my eyes, whatever, don't do it, girl, don't do it. But I went ahead and told her what needed to be done. She signed the quitclaim deed. His name is added to title. We all go on about our business. Well, a few years later, she contacts me and she's like, "Miss Smoot, I don't know if you remember me, but you did a closing for me and I added my boyfriend's name to the title." She said, "Well, I am through with him. He won't get out of the house. He's refusing to convey his interest in the house back to me. What do I do?" Well, guess what? There's not a whole lot that she could do short of litigation, costly litigation. And she was like, "Well, what if I quit claim my interest back to him?" And I'm like, "You can do that, or not back to him, to him." I said, "You can do that, but you are still legally responsible for the mortgage." And she said, "Wait a minute. So if I give my interest in the house to him, you mean to tell me that I still have to pay the mortgage?" I said, "Absolutely." I said, theoretically, you don't have to pay it, but if you don't pay it, it's going to impact your credit. It's not going to hurt him at all, except when it gets to the point that the home gets foreclosed on and he gets put out on the street. But your credit will suffer if you miss mortgage payments, if the house gets foreclosed on. And she's like, "Well, I don't want that to happen. So, what do I do?" And it's like, "You're going to have to litigate it." And she's like, "Well, I don't have money to pay an attorney." So she was literally up a creek without a paddle and really just stuck in this situation where this man, I started to call him a name, but I'm not going to call him a name. This man who knew that the house wasn't technically his was refusing to quitclaim the interest that she had given him at that closing table back to her when the relationship ended. So, when you're in love and everything is rainbows and puppy dogs and sunshine and ice cream cones, you think, "Oh, this is great. We're never going to break up. We're going to be together forever. I know we're going to be getting married soon. Everything is going to be fine." And that's true until it isn't. So my advice is to never quitclaim or convey your interest to someone who doesn't have a legal obligation to pay the mortgage. Now, are there exceptions? Yes. Maybe you move in with an elderly family member or an ailing family member, and you're their primary caregiver, and they decide to add your name to title. I can understand that. And even then, that can be a sticky situation. If the relationship devolves and you decide, "I'm done, I'm not taking care of this person anymore," or they don't want you in their house anymore, and, you don't do the right thing by conveying the interest back to them, it's just a risky thing to do, to add someone's name to title who doesn't have a legal responsibility for paying the mortgage. Now, you might be wondering what happens if there's a married couple and one of them is purchasing a property, the other's name is not going to be on the mortgage documents. How does that work? Well, typically, if The spouse's name is going to be on the warranty deed, even if they're not an actual borrower. They will have to sign the security deed, the mortgage, so that the lender can capture their marital interest in the property. If the spouse is not going to be on the warranty deed, the mortgage company will probably want them to sign the security deed to capture their marital interest. And it really depends on what the law is in your state. But in Georgia, if you are married and you purchase a property during the course of the marriage, the spouse automatically has a marital interest in that property, even if they have not contributed one dime toward the purchase, because any money that is made during the marriage, regardless of who makes it, is considered marital property. So, those are 3 costly mistakes that you should avoid if you are purchasing a home. And if you have any questions about any of that, drop them in the comments. I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. And there is a link in the comments to a freebie. It is an infographic about the importance of getting a survey. I look forward to seeing you again in another video. Take care.